Hey everyone, welcome to my studio. Here is the project I am working on this week. It is a 30-inch by 75-inch mosaic with this design of Moses striking the rock. It is one of 3 mosaics that will be going around the sides of a fountain at a church. And let me show you where I'm at. I've gotten a really good start on the rocks. And I will be working on the rocks again this week. Most notably, this is probably going to be the slowest part right here, working around all these fiddly things, the droplets and the people. But the rest of the rocks should go fairly quickly. And I think instead of starting on that finicky bit, I am going to start on this part right here. So when I made this design, I made it, I think about a year ago. I was working on some other projects at the time. And this rock in particular, they requested to be heart-shaped. So I made it heart-shaped. And that's the one I'm gonna work on first this week. It's been a couple weeks since I started these rocks. I'm just gonna show you again the glass that I'm using. I have these 2 Yakagani pieces. This is the same as this, 2021 and 2120. And there is so much variation in it. Just look how swirly this one is. This is the lighter one compared to this one, which has some really, really light parts and as well as some, look at the difference in the dark parts even. Like there's just a nice range of color there. And what I've been doing is I cut it into strips. So I've got some light and then I've got some dark. And then I just take after. I'm using the design that's under the mesh and just following it in general. If it's a little bit off here and there, it's not really a problem. There are a few water drops on this, so I'm gonna make those first and then I'm gonna get after it. Start by cutting down some more of the darker glass, which I don't have that much. And usually before I do any cutting, I dip the end of my cutter in some oil that's on a cotton piece. And this one, look at this. I'm gonna show you how pretty this is. It has some beautiful texture that's very rock-like and some lovely modeling throughout. It's very nice, but I have to score it on a smoother side, so I have to flip it over. And I'll just cut a few for now. I usually just cut them as needed, but I like to have several to choose from. Usually do one a little fatter, but I do have a fatter one over there right now, so I need some thinner ones. I found I had already cut several of these, so I'm just placing them here now, and it's much easier to place them with adhesive when I am doing the actual background. That way, if they need to shift a little bit one way or the other to accommodate the pieces that are there, it makes it easier. So all these pieces are loose, but they're ready to go, and I'm gonna get after it for real this time. When working on this brown rock behind the brown staff, I'm making sure that there is a difference in hue. So I am selecting redder pieces of brown for the rock. The heart rock is finished. And I know it's really popping right now, but once I get these other rocks in, it will not quite be so bold and heart-like. So I'm gonna work this way, I think, right now. A new day in the studio, and I am determined to knock out this area. Now I'm going to make a change, so I wanted to point out the change, and the change is that in this design I have got the rock, the fingers, and the droplets and the sand all coming together in one little area, and I think it's just too much going on. So I am moving the rock line up so that they're not all in one spot. And I think it'll be easier to read all of the different things because of that. So that's one thing. I'm going to first work on this, and then I will move on to those rocks over there, which are much easier because there's nothing blocking them. When I make minor changes like this, I'm able to do that because I made this design originally. It was approved by my client, and my client trusts me to make a minor change like that without running it past them. So they've been really wonderful to work with in that regard. I'm going to get after it now. That's it. about how I use this paper to prevent shards from flying all underneath the mesh. But for instance, here's a shard. So whenever I notice a shard on the actual mosaic or on the mesh, I go ahead and pick it up. And a lot of times, if it is small, say like this one, this sounds kind of gross, but I lick my finger and tap it and it will stick to my finger, and then I can put it aside or in the trash or whatever. But often if it gets stuck under the mesh, I cannot do that, and it takes a minute to get it cleaned out. I don't want that in there because it is going to prevent the thinset from sticking to the mesh or sticking to the substrate in the end. So I have to get that out somehow. I don't know how I just got that out. Oh, here it is. Now I'll lick my finger and pick that up again. There it is. I just don't want those shards in there, and they inevitably get under there. Once in a while, I pick the entire mosaic up and put it 90 degrees to take a look at it, and a lot of times I'll tap the back at that time, and little shards kind of come out at that point too. So keeping those shards cleaned up is going to make for an easier installation and better adhesion in the end. That's it. Difficult for me to capture how sparkly the gold is in here, but I want to show you what happens when I turn out the light. See how they just light up? It's amazing. That's putting it together. Thanks for watching. See you next time.